In this video, we're going to put together the UI for our new message activity. So I want to put together the buttons that take the picture and that flip the camera. Now I want them to I want to do a nice little circle button thing. So I want to introduce you guys to how we can create some non-trivial drawables. So to do that, let's go ahead and I'm going to start off with showing you guys how we can do selector drawables. And I'm going to be implementing our buttons as these little round icon buttons on the lower right hand and lower left hand side of the screen. And I want to start off by showing you guys how we can make a drawable that will change its color based on its whether or not it's pressed. And then I'll show you guys a cool little effect we can do with a nice little shadowy effect that we can do with it. All the drawable stuff it's interesting stuff. I recommend people, if they want to accomplish something with backgrounds, to go definitely check out the documentation on it, because there's a lot of different shapes and different things you can do. But at the very least, this will get you guys started with that. So I'm going to open up my resource folder, open up my drawable folder, and I'm going to right click, select new, and drawable resource file. And for this, I'm going to call this round button. Hit OK. And we have a drawable XML file with a selector. Now I'm going to create an item with a state pressed equals true. And then I'm going to say shape, and I'm going to give it a shape of oval. And then inside of this shape, I'm going to give it a solid color of FFFF8800, which is this nice orange color. Then I'm going to go ahead and create another item. And I guess I'll go ahead and do the whole the whole shadow for you guys right here. It's actually really straightforward. It's a little repetitive, but it's pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say open up a layer list. So a layer list allows us to create multiple things of these shape things with their own colors, and it'll layer one on top of each other. So I'm going to start off with a item in my layer list, and it'll be a shape of shape oval. Then inside here, I'm going to give it a solid, and I'm going to give a solid color of 1055555. Then I'm going to go ahead and give it a padding of bottom of 1 dp, top of 1 dp, right of 1 dp, and left of 1 dp. And then I'll close it out. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this item, the shape right here, and I'm going to copy and paste it multiple times. So I want to create an effect of a shadow, and doing that is pretty straightforward. We just create these ovals, these transparent ovals, and we make it slightly darker the further in we get, and it'll appear to be a nice little shadow for us. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to paste this. Let's do this 5 times. So 1, 2, 3. Whoops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then for each one of these ovals, I'm going to change the alpha component of their colors slightly. So the next oval will be 20, the next oval will be 40, the next oval will be 50, and the next oval will be 60. So this will give a nice background shadow for us. And then all the way at the bottom here, I'm going to give one last item. I'm going to open up an item, and this is going to be the actual color of the button. And it's going to be a shape of shape oval. And it's going to have a solid, and for this color, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use color of, let's do FF0099CC, and FF0099CC, which is a nice blue color. And that's it. So now we have a nice little, by default, this drawable is going to be have a nice little drop shadow. It's going to be blue on the inside, and then when it's pressed, it'll turn orange, and the shadow will disappear, kind of giving the illusion, I suppose, of it being pressed into the surface of the screen. All right, now that we have that round button done, we can now implement the user interface for our new message activity. So I'm going to open up my layout, and I'm going to go ahead and find activity new message. And for my activity new message, I'm going to create 2 image buttons, and one will be to the right and one will be to the left. So inside of here, I'm going to create an image button, and he's going to have a layout width of 46 dp and a layout height of 46 dp. And then we're going to give him a background of our drawable round button. and we're going to give him a layout gravity of bottom and end. And we're going to give him a margin end of 10 dp. Whoops. 10 dp. And we're going to give him a margin bottom of 10 dp. And for the source, I'm going to say drawable icy action camera. And then for the padding, we'll give him 5 dp. And then for the ID, we'll give him activity, new message, message, take picture. Then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this entire image button. The only things I'm going to change here is I'm going to change the gravity to bottom and start. I'm going to change the margin end to margin start. And then I'm going to change the ID to switch camera. And yeah. So now if I go ahead and hit run, what we see is now this. We now have our two buttons, and when I click on them, notice how they turn orange like that. So that's really cool. Also, I forgot to change the icon for the left image. Let's go ahead and fix that real fast. That's why it's important to test, because I am a very, very forgetful person, as you guys have probably figured out by now. We're going to change this to Icy Action User. All right, let's go ahead and start implementing the code here for this. So let's go ahead and implement the switching the camera one first. So I'm going to open up my activities, my new message activity. And for this, I'm going to go ahead and jump up all the way to the top here. And after we add our view, I guess I can go ahead and say find view by ID, r.id, new message switch camera dot set on click listener this. And then I can say find view by ID, r.id, take picture, set on click listener this. And now I'm going to hit Alt Enter on the squiggles and say make new message activity implement on click listener. And then hit Enter again. And then I'm going to take this on click method that was just generated for me, and I'm going to move it near to the top here so you guys can see the code that I just wrote in addition to the code I'm writing. Then I'm going to say int id equals view.getID. And I'm going to say if id equals r dot take picture, then I'm going to say, well, I'm simply going to defer that to a different method. I'm going to say take picture. And then I'm going to say else if id equals r dot id switch camera, I'm going to say switch camera. So let's do the switch camera method first. That's pretty straightforward. I'm going to say private void switch camera. And switch camera is simply going to say if camera, or sorry, it's going to say, actually no, if camera does not equal null, then camera.release, and then we're going to say camera preview.setCamera null null. In fact, we want to do the set camera null null before we do the camera.release. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say current camera index equals current camera index plus 1 is smaller than camera get number of cameras, and if that's true, set it to current camera index plus 1, otherwise set it back to 0, so it'll wrap around to 0, and then simply establish the camera. Which, remember how I said I was a forgetful person? It turns out that I already have this code here where I set the preview to null, so I'll go ahead and just nuke that. Just pretend that that doesn't exist. Then for the take picture, I'm going to say private void take picture. And for take picture, we're simply going to say camera.takePicture, passing in null, null, this. So if you look at the parameter list of the camera.takePicture, you see it takes 3 or 4 callbacks. So we have our shutter callback, our raw data callback, or our JPEG callback. I'm going to pass in this for the JPEG callback so we get a compressed JPEG image of the camera, or of the camera when it takes the picture. Then I'm going to hit Alt-Enter and say, make new message activity implement picture callback. And I'm going to hit Enter and Enter. And now we have this method all the way at the bottom here called onPictureTaken. Now we're not going to worry about that quite yet. I want to go ahead and test to make sure my cameras are flipping. So I'm going to hit play. So while that's doing that, here's the code I just wrote. Here's the, oh, go away. Stop that madness. Here's the on-click, the switch camera, and the take picture method. Now I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to select this button, and check that out. It switches the camera. Awesome. And if I hit take picture, you notice the camera stops, but that's not a big deal. The preview will stop when you actually take the picture. That's not a big deal though, because we're going to be switching to a different activity anyway. All right, so what I want to do now is I want to stub out my next activity. So the next activity will show a preview of the thing we just took and allow us to type in additional parameters like select who the person is that we want to send the message to and all that fun stuff. So it'll also turn out that this will be the last activity that we're going to have in this application. So that's super exciting. So let's go ahead and jump over into our activities package. I'm going to right click, select new Java class, and I'm going to write a send message activity. He's going to inherit from base authenticated activity, and I'll go ahead and implement his onYouAreCreate, and then I'm going to set its content view to r.layout.activity send message, and I'll hit Alt-Enter to bring in that R. Now I'm going to kind of sort of stub this out. It'll be a little interesting. I'll go ahead and do the stub of the layout first here, because what I want to do here is I want to show you we're going to have to do some image processing on that image, but we have no current way of looking at that image after it's been taken. So I'm going to write enough of the send message activity so that we can take a look at the image as it's being taken from the camera. So let's put our keyboard cursor on this red here, and I'm going to hit Alt-Enter and say create layout resource file. And I'm going to give it a relative layout. Not a recycler view, a relative layout. Now, inside of this relative layout, I'm going to go ahead and break this up just a tad. And I'm going to give it a background of black. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, I guess we can include the toolbar. That won't hurt. I'm going to say include layout toolbar, include toolbar. And I am going to go ahead and have to give it an ID, and I'm going to give it the same ID as the toolbar itself. So I'm going to say plus ID include toolbar. Then I'm going to create an image view. Now this image view is going to have a width and a height of match parent, and then it's going to say layout below include toolbar. Then I'm going to give it an ID of activity send message image. Now, in my send, so take a look at that. I'm going to hop back over into the send message activity real fast. So over here, let's go ahead and implement this. I'm going to create a couple public fields here. I'm going to say public static final string extra image path equals extra image path. So this is going to be the additional data in the intent where it's going to specify where the image is that the camera just took. Then I'm going to say extra underscore contact equals extra contact. Then I'm going to say public static final int max image height, and I'm going to set it to 1280. Then what I'm going to do is on my actual create, I'm going to go ahead and get my image. So get my actual image view. I'm going to say image view image equals cast to image view find view of ID r.id send message image. Then I'm going to extract out the URI out of the intent. So to do that, I'm going to say URI, and I'm going to pull the URI from android.net. Image URI equals get intent dot get parsable extra. It turns out that URIs are also parsables. And then I'm going to say extra image path. Then I'm going to say if image URI does not equal null, meaning they set that in the intent, then I'm going to go ahead and set it to my image view. So I'm going to say Picasso with this, load image URI into image view, or just image. In fact, we won't even need this image local variable at all after we set the image, so I'm going to move its definition or its declaration into the if block. And at this point, that's really all I care about. We'll definitely be filling this activity in very shortly here in another video, but this will at least allow me to preview the image as it's being taken by my camera and be able to see how it's being rendered and how our image manipulation is going to change. Okay, so let's jump back into our new message activity, and let's take a look at our on picture taken. So this method is going to get fairly large, I guess. But basically, what I need to do now is I want to go ahead and extract the bitmap. So I'm going to make a helper method for that. I'm going to say bitmap equals process bitmap data. Then I'm going to stub out the bitmap, the process bitmap data method, or process bitmap. So I'm going to say private bitmap process bitmap byte array data, which will simply go ahead and return bitmap factory dot decode byte array data 0 data length. So I'm breaking this out into its own method kind of preemptively because we're going to be doing all our image processing in this method. But for now, what I need to do is I need to save this bitmap to my device and then launch my send message activity with the URI to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to say byte array output stream, output equals new byte array output stream, and I'm going to say bitmap dot compress, passing it in to passing in bitmap dot compression format dot JPEG 100 for the quality and output for the output stream. So this will take our bitmap that we just manipulated and compress it into a JPEG format that we can use in the stream. Then I'm going to say, or I'm not going to open a file that just yet. I'm going to say file output file equals new file, passing in git cache dir for our directory, and then passing in temp-image for our image. Then I'm going to say try, and I'm going to say file output stream file output equals new file output stream, passing in output file, and we'll say file output dot write output dot to byte array. Then we'll definitely want to say file output dot close. Then I'm going to say catch exception e, and for the catch exception e, I'm first going to log e, passing in tag could not save bitmap e, and then I'm going to say toast dot make toast this could not save image to temp directory. So that'll be the message that the user sees. Toast.length short show and then return. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up an intent and pass it to my send message activity. I'm going to say intent equals new intent this send message activity dot class. And I'm going to say intent dot put extra send message activity dot extra image path and then URI from file from file output file. Then I'm going to do something interesting here. I'm going to say user details user equals get intent dot get parsable extra contact. Then I'm going to say if user does not equal null, then I'm going to say intent dot put extra send message activity dot extra contact user. So what am I doing here? Well, if the person who started the new message activity sent in a contact that needs to be the recipient of this message, then take that and propagate it to the new activity, to the send message activity. Then all we have left is start activity for result, passing in intent, and then I can finally say bitmap.recycle. Bitmap.recycle is a just simple start activity for result, and we want to pass in request underscore send message, which I haven't written yet, and then we do bitmap.recycle to clean up the bitmap. So you'll always want to recycle the bitmap when you're done, so it releases or potentially releases native data, native resources, depending on the implementation. All right, so take one last look on the onPictureTaken method because I'm about to go ahead and write our request send message request. The reason I'm doing that is because when we send the message and start that activity, if the message is successfully sent, I want to kind of propagate or finish this chain entirely and have this activity finish itself as well. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to scroll all the way to the top, and well, I'm going to actually get this on my clipboard so I remember how to spell it. And then I'm going to say private static final int request send message equals 1. And then I guess since we've already done that, we can go ahead and implement our onActivity result. So I'm going to scroll all the way back down to the bottom, and add a new method. So I'm going to hit Alt Insert Override Members. I'm going to say on activity result, and I'm going to say if request code, if request code. IntelliSense just hates me today. If request code equals request send message and result code equals result OK, then we want to set our result. So set result, result OK, and then finish. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit play. So basically right now what should happen is we should be able to take an image and it should show up on the next screen. Now, it might be a little distorted, but we're going to figure that out here in a second. So I'm going to hit this button here, and we get an exception. We get unable to find... yeah, I forgot to add the send message activity to my manifest, because of course I did. All right, let's jump into our Android manifest here, and I'm going to say activity, and then for the name, it's going to be send message activity. Now let's hit play for real this time. And we'll hit that. And check that out. Now, it doesn't quite look like how it should be. In fact, it should be, we should have it rotated. So I can hit back, by the way, and we'll get back here and I can take another image. So it's not rotated correctly. And on our front camera, if you look really closely, it's actually going to be, let's see. It's going to be upside down and flipped. And it sometimes does it, sometimes doesn't do it based on the particular device that you may have. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and implement this process bitmap method so that we can go ahead and fix some of the potential issues that we might have with this. And if on your device, on your own testing, these things don't happen, then you might want to look into writing some device-specific code. It's unfortunate that what I'm about to write should handle almost all the cases, except for, funny enough, Getty Motion. If you use your webcam instead of the dummy webcam, Getty Motion will do some different rotation on the device than if you had like a Nexus or something like that, a physical device. It's an unfortunate thing that you just have to deal with, but again, something that is definitely something that you might want to tweak depending on how you intend the interface to be used. But either way, there is one small bug here. I do want to come up here, and on this output file, I forgot something. I do want to say output file.delete. I want to make sure that the output file is cleared right before we write to it. So just add that one line of code and you should be good. Okay, so let's go ahead and implement our process bitmap. It's gonna, first of all, the process bitmap method is going to resize the image if it's above the max height, and then it's going to check to see if it's using a front-facing camera. If it is, it's going to mirror the image, and then regardless of if it mirrors the image or not, it's going to rotate it by 90 degrees, and then it's going to recreate the bitmap and it's going to return it. So let's start off with saying bitmap, instead of return, we're going to say bitmap equals decode as a byte array. Then I'm going to say if bitmap.getWidth is greater than send message activity.max image height. Then I'm going to say do some really basic resizing code. I'm going to say float scale equals cast to float send message activity dot max image height divided by bitmap get width. So we're getting this ratio here that we need to apply to our height. And I'm going to say int final width equals cast to int bitmap dot get height multiplied by scale. And I'm going to say bitmap resized bitmap equals bitmap dot create scaled bitmap, passing in the original bitmap, and then the send message activity dot height for the width, and then the destination width or the final width for the height, and then false for the filter. Then I'm going to say if resized bitmap does not equal bitmap, then bitmap dot recycle, and bitmap equals resized bitmap. So you notice it is interesting here that I'm mixing my height and my width up, but that's because the image is going to be on its side. And so I'm correcting for that. If you want these annoying warnings to go away that say that you're probably passing the wrong parameters into things, put your keyboard cursor on the warning, hit Alt-Enter, and say, hit right arrow on this top inspection, and I'm going to say suppress for method. And that'll make this annotation up here suppress that warning. I just find warnings annoying. After we scale the image, I'm going to say if the resize bitmap does not equal bitmap, and that's because bitmap.createScale bitmap may return the same bitmap object that we passed into it. Almost all the bitmap methods might. And that's a performance optimization for the case where nothing has to be done to the original bitmap, so it doesn't need to do any calculations. So I can't just blindly recycle the bitmap because it might be the same thing as what was returned. So I first check to see if the return bitmap is different than the source bitmap, and if it is, I recycle the source bitmap, and then I assign the new bitmap to the bitmap field. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the image if we're on a right-facing camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say matrix equals new matrix. And I'm going to say if camera info dot facing equals camera dot camera info dot camera facing front. So if we're on a front camera, now I'm going to do something cool. I'm going to say matrix mirror equals new matrix. Then I'm going to say matrix mirror dot set values new float array, and I'm going to use my array syntax here. I'm going to pass in -1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 1, and then I'm going to say matrix dot post concat matrix mirror. I'll talk about what these values mean in a second after I finish the rest of this matrix code. Then at the end I'm going to say matrix dot post rotate 90 degrees, and then I'm going to say bitmap processed bitmap equals bitmap dot create bitmap, passing in bitmap 0 and 0 for the x and y, bitmap get width for the width, bitmap get height for the height, matrix, and then true for filter. Then I'm going to say if bitmap does not equal processed bitmap, then bitmap.recycle, otherwise return processed bitmap. Okay, so what we're doing here is, again, I've already explained the code in English. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to build this matrix, and this matrix will represent some modification we're going to do to the image. And if we're on the front-facing camera, we want to flip it. And we do it with this matrix, this mirror matrix right here. And then we concatenate it to this matrix. Then we rotate the matrix, and then we create a bitmap out of it. Now, if you're unfamiliar or rusty with your linear algebra, a matrix is really just a two-dimensional array of numbers. And what's really cool about how matrices work in math is they can be used to transform, or translate, rather, individual vectors or individual positions. And what we can do here is we can use a really nice matrix right here, which is close to the identity matrix, where its x component is negated. So this is the identity matrix, which means any vector applied to this matrix or multiplied by this matrix this is almost the identity matrix. This would be the identity matrix. If this were the identity matrix, this means that any vector, so any x and y, or xyz in this case, because it's a 3x3 matrix, applied to this is going to return the same value. So it's going to return as the same vector. That would be the identity matrix. But if we negate this guy right here, all of his x values are going to be negated and swapped. And that's just due to how matrix multiplication works. If you're interested in how this works, look up matrix multiplication and how vectors can be used, or matrices can be used to manipulate vectors and sort of do all sorts of different awesome things. I mean, this is pretty much the basis of a lot of 2D and 3D graphics is what you're looking at right here. It's really cool stuff, really fun stuff. Also, really out of the scope of talking about Android. So this is less of an Android thing and more of a, like I said earlier, a linear algebra thing. Anyway, so that's that. That is our awesome post-processing code. I'll hit play. We won't really notice much difference here, but you would notice if you're using a physical device. And that's just because the Genymotion camera is just a little different than how the physical devices work. But I just want to run this code to make sure it actually works and doesn't throw an error. All right, so that works. And that gets flipped. Now, you'll notice that the front camera is being flipped even though it shouldn't be. See how it's being flipped like that? However, on a real device, it wouldn't have been mirrored to begin with. So that should be that. And if you got on a real device, this should work out okay. All right, so that's us taking an image. It's not the most fun or glamorous sort of thing, but it is very important. And yeah, I think we're about done with this video. And in the next video, we'll actually put together the user interface for sending out a message. So that'll be really fun. And we'll see you guys.